about the conflicts. According to Follett, conflict is the appearance of difference, difference of opinion, or difference of interest. Right. So, in simple words, conflict is when there is some differences in the minds of two persons or a group of persons where they are contrasting in opinions or interest factors, and that is known as the conflict, right? So why we are studying about the conflict in organization behavior is that uh, conflict is something which will cause the impact on the productivity. If you know about the Nokia was a very good brand, and it was dealing into smartphone business for years, dominating it. But due to the internal conflicts in the management, they were not able to innovate on time. They were not able to take the right decisions on right time, and it led to the decline of the Nokia's smartphone business, right? So conflict is something that organization has to cater with and solve it, so that the organization will flourish. So there are three stages of a conflict, right? Or three kinds of conflict. First is the latent conflict, then is the felt conflict, and then is the manifest conflict. So felt conflict is latent conflict is which is hidden, right? Which is in the minds. Like for example, one of you in the class does not wish me say good afternoon, right? So I have in my mind, I am going through that student hasn't wished me good afternoon, might be that student is disrespectful. Just a hypothetical example I am giving. So I have in my mind going on a certain kind of conflict, that student is not good, that is not respecting me, right? So this is the kind of a latent conflict which is in the mind. Manifest conflict is next time when I saw that student, I also ignore that student, his queries or her queries as well, right? This is the felt conflict, when you are able to, others are also able to see that there is some issue going on, right? Third is the manifest conflict. Manifest conflict is when the conflict leads to some consequences or results, bad results. Like, for example, due to the conflict, I have given that student less marks. This is a kind of a manifest conflict. Just for the hypothetical example, I have given this. So, what organizations try is to solve the conflict at the stage of the felt conflict, rather than leaving it till the manifest conflict stage. Why? Because at the manifest conflict stage, it is very difficult to solve it, or it is very difficult to reverse it. It will damage the organization. Like for example, there is conflict going on between the management and the workers from past few months, right? Even though they are aware, but still they are not able to solve it. What will be the resultant? Workers will go on strike, or they will be on leave. They will not be very productive, and it will have an impact on the organizational's profitability, right? So this is the manifested conflict. So what we try to do is, we try to initially solve the conflict when we are felting it at the felt stage, right? Is it clear, or any doubt, anyone? Definition of conflict and the stages of conflict, is it clear? Okay. Now, conflict can occur between two individuals, which is known as interpersonal conflict. Conflict can arise within oneself as well, right? Like conflict can be in my mind as well. A conflict in the mind, in the sense that I'm in conflict with myself. Conflict with myself means I'm not able to decide between the two courses of action, right? Whether should I select this one or this that one. That is also kind of conflict, but that is within the mind. That is known as the intrapersonal conflict, within the individual, right? Within the person itself, right? When we talk about between two persons, it is interpersonal conflict, right? Group conflicts are also there. Intergroup conflict, intra-group conflict, within the group, right? Within your class, if you have certain conflicts going on, that is the intra group conflict. But with your class and with the morning class there is conflict going on, this is inter group conflict, right? So conflict occurs when individuals are not able to choose among the available alternative courses of action. Two choices, that is the intrapersonal conflict. Then two individuals, when they are having different or conflicting perceptions, values and goals, it also leads to the conflict. Like for example, the there is conflict going on between the government and the farmers unions for so many months, because of the reason they have different perceptions about the law which has been created, right? Both are thinking differently about the benefits and the reality of the law, right? That perception, that their viewpoint, their understanding of that law is leading to conflicts. Then conflict is a dynamic process in the sense that each conflict is made up of a series of interlocking conflict episodes. Means it is not something that we can analyze. Conflict every time it will occur in this manner. There is no pattern in conflict. It will occur in various manners. So there is no one kind of pattern it will follow, right? So it is up to the manager to observe within the organization if there is some conflict going on with the within the organization or with the third parties as well. Maybe raw material suppliers are not happy with the management and the payment system, finance department. That is also very alarming. You have to solve that conflict immediately. Otherwise, if the raw material suppliers are unwilling to give you the raw material, think about that situation. Your factory will be out of the production. They will not give you the raw materials. You have to look for other alternatives. Very complicated situation, right? Then conflict must be perceived by the parties to it. Means it is based on the that awareness of the conflict. Then as I have said, that felt at the stage of felt conflict, people are going to notice that there is some issue. When we are talking about the latent conflict, it is only in the minds, it is not visible to others, right? Is it clear? Any doubt? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, issues or causes of conflict. One of the main cause of conflict is the information. Sometimes misleading facts or misleading information is causing the major conflict, right? Goals or objectives are different. Contrasting goals are there. It leads to conflicts. Like I have given two or three students a particular assignment to do, but they are not able to do it together because of the reason their goals, their ideas, their way of doing things are different, right? That leads to conflict. Methods is also same. Method is the way of doing things, way of doing particular thing, right? Sometimes the people are very different in different approaches to the work. They are not able to cope up. Values are the beliefs. Values, you know about the values in families as well. People say na in family that we have this family value. The value is the beliefs which are set of the beliefs which are followed by a particular family or a society, right? So people with different values certainly will contrast with each other. Like you talk about Indian society, values are different from the values of an American society, right? So their values are different, Indian values are different. So might be the people working with the Americans, their values will contrast, right? They have different value systems, their beliefs are different, Indians beliefs are different. It will leads to some kind of moral conflict. One will think that other is doing immoral thing, and other will think that person is doing something immoral, right? Ultimately conflict will arise, right? Is it clear? Is it clear? Now, levels of conflict. Either conflict happens at individual level between the two individuals or within the individual itself, or it happens at the entire organizational level. Full organization is having certain kind of conflicts going on, whether it is between the departments or between the workers and the management, or whatever the situation might be. Then inter-organizational conflict is when the two organizations are in conflicting nature. Like for example, might be there is conflict between the Reliance and Tata. So they are always into the competition, they are always trying to uh, cut the others profitability and this. So this is the inter-organizational conflict. So generally in the organization we are concerned with the organizational conflict and the individual conflict as well. Because conflict is never fruitful, right? It might lead to some damages, so we are trying to make the conflict solve the conflict as soon as possible, right? Now, causes of intrapersonal conflict. Intrapersonal we have discussed. What is intrapersonal conflict? Within the individual itself, right? Within the individual where there is conflict, that is known as intrapersonal conflict. Generally, these are more based on psychologies. So generally, if you are providing them the training and the counseling so that they are able to solve their within their minds whatever the conflicts is arising, they can solve it and solve the confusion, right? First is the role conflict is the cause of the intrapersonal conflict. Role conflict means when an individual is confused which role to play. Generally happens in say family businesses. A father who in what happens in family business, father is the manager and under the father there are his sons or daughters are working at managerial positions. So at sometimes might be one son or daughter is not doing the work efficiently. So either the father should act as a father and just politely remind it, right? Or he should act as a manager and strictly warn them to correct their actions. So this is a role conflict. Which role should they play? As a father or as a manager or as a boss, right? So these kinds of conflicts arises in various situations in the organizations, not only in family businesses but in normal businesses as well. Role conflicts arises. Which role should I play? As a leader or as a kind of figurehead or something. You have done with the roles of managers, na, right? Different roles they can play at different situations. Sometimes they're confused which kind of role should they play, right? How they behave, how should they react. Is it clear? Is it clear? Role conflict. Now, another cause of intrapersonal conflict is sometimes as an individual you are at conflict with the goals or objectives or different courses of action. Two alternatives, you are not able to choose between the two alternatives. These are of approach conflicts. Sometimes two alternatives are equally, you can say, beneficial, but you are confused which one to choose. Like for example, I can manager has to decide which in which area the person has to start a factory. Both locations are very good, cost is similar, all things are similar. Now manager is confused which option to choose, where to start the new factory, because both are equally beneficial. So this is approach conflict, right? So sometimes there is avoidance conflict, where both the courses of actions will lead to certain kind of damages, certain kind of negative influence on the organization, but one has to be chosen. There is no other choice, right? So what as an individual you can do is you try to choose the one which is least damaging to the organization. Like let's take for example, there is some government, due to some government policy or something, you have to fit certain equipments in your factory, right? Or you have to pay the fine. So this is something conflicting in the mind of a manager. Shall I pay the fine or shall I put money into the equipment? They are both equally damaging to the organization. किस पे uh, on which should I choose? Both will be kind of loss for the organization, whether you pay the fine or you put the unwanted equipments into a factory which are of no use, not profitability, right? So this is a kind of a avoidance conflict. Then is the approach avoidance conflict. Like some actions or courses of actions have both positive impact and negative impact as well. So choosing which approach avoidance is, which action or which decision making should be done. So you will be comparing its positives and negatives as well. Like मैं अगर ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के अंदर डिजिटलाइजेशन करता हूँ, कंप्यूटर completely automated कर देता हूँ फैक्ट्री को, it that automation in the factory will lead to better productivity, right? But on the other hand the automation will lead to the firing of various employees and workers, and it will have an negative impact on the image of the organization, that this organization is firing the so many workers and all, right? Is it clear? Is the causes of intrapersonal conflict clear to you? Is it clear? Now next is the intergroup conflicts between the two groups. The conflicts arises joint decision making. Sometimes the conflicts are due to the joint decision making, like two departments have given them the power to decide on something, but the both the departments have different opinions, right? Like I have given the target to marketing department and production department to decide about the future strategies in the production as well as in marketing, but they are very contrasting in nature. One is saying that production department is saying new product is not good at this time, we should produce only old one. Marketing department is saying that as per our survey new products is required at this time, right? Differences in goals, दोनों departments के goals और objectives are very different. It might be the cause of the conflict, right? Departments, or you can say groups, can be in the form of small sub departments and all as well. Differences in perception we have studied. The viewpoint, maybe they are seeing the things very differently from the other group, and it will lead to intergroup conflicts. Like BCom evening might be in conflict with the BCom morning shift, because their perceptions or their goals are not matching. If I have given them the task of preparing a combined role play, right? Then is the task ambiguity. Ambiguity means, which is when the task or the work is so confusing, right? Like you have heard of this word ambiguous. Ambiguous means which is confusing, which is very difficult to figure out what the thing is all about. Like there are ambiguous words as well which are very confusing. Multiple meanings of that word are, so it is very difficult to understand what does that word mean in a particular situation. In the similar way, some tasks are very confusing, right? And confusing tasks will lead to different kind of perceptions, different viewpoints of different groups, and ultimately it will result into conflicts. Difference in work orientation is how they approach the work, how they do the work, their methods, their approach to the work is very different. Two groups are doing the work very differently. Might be in one group or one department they are following different kind of leadership, in another one they are following very different kind of leadership, so their working style is very different. It can be the reason for the conflict. Then organizational reward system. Sometimes the reward system or the motivation system is very odd, that one department or one group is getting more benefit, another is getting more less benefit. Maybe due to the increase in sales, only the production department and the sales department are getting the bonuses, but HR department are not getting it. So this might lead to intergroup conflict as well, that why a particular group is getting more benefit than the other, when everyone has equally you can say worked on. Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Now strategies oblique techniques for managing conflict, right? So first is conflict simulation. Conflict simulation, let's talk about, say, first prevention and resolution. What happens in prevention is that you are making certain changes, certain you can say changes in the organization. You are making an atmosphere in such a way that you are having good communication in the organization. There is no, everyone is involved into decision making, so it will lead to the chances of the conflict arising is limited. That is known as conflict prevention. कि conflict होने से रोकना, that is conflict prevention. You are preventing the conflict to happen by building an atmosphere in the in the organization that is discouraging the conflicts, like everyone is getting all the information in the right context, everyone is getting the you can say that you are avoiding certain situations, you are providing best information. So that is the conflict prevention. Conflict resolution techniques are where conflict has happened, now you are resolving it. Either you are building certain kind of mechanisms, discussions, or counseling to the people who are at conflict so that the conflict can be resolved, right? So understood these two techniques. Conflict prevention techniques includes the ways to avoid conflict so that it does not happen, whereas when the conflict has already happened, you need to focus on the conflict resolution to solve that conflict. Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now we'll talk about the conflict stimulation strategies. Right. So, see, conflict simulation is where the conflict is not actually happening, but you are creating a stimulated conflict, right? Up to a limit, the organization, the is creating a kind of conflict in order to do something positive about the conflict, right? Like organization managers are themselves creating a kind of conflict in the organization, right? What is the benefit of the conflict? Why the organization will introduce a light headed conflict in the organization within the departments and all? What is the benefit? Can somebody answer? This is very new thing which is happening nowadays, that the organization and the managers themselves are simulating the or introducing certain kind of healthy conflict in the organization. What is the benefit? Tell me. See, sometimes conflict is fruitful in the sense that, say, there is conflict going on, conflict of opinion going on to departments when they are taking decisions. If conflict is up to a limit very decent, what it will result into? More discussions. More discussions will lead to better decision making. People will come up with their arguments. See, in this politics as well, if you have studied in political science, there is a benefit of having a opposition party, because opposition party can correct the ruling party in some way or another by criticizing their activities and all. In the similar manner, if there is some kind of healthy conflict in the organization which is not damaging the productivity, it can lead to better decision making, because now uh, only if there will be no conflict, what will happen? I have introduced certain you can say decision, or I introduced certain plan, and everyone is accepting it. There is no conflict. Maybe my plan is not very innovative, but there is no conflict. But if there is conflict, people are presenting their own ideas as well. There will be discussions, and discussions will lead to better decision making, right? So but it is very risky in the sense that you have to take care that it does not become negative. In this sense, you have to create you have to stop the conflict where it starts becoming negative or unproductive, right? Is it clear? Three strategies are clear, or any doubt? Is it clear? Is the three strategies clear?
Yes, sir.
So see, these are the ways in which the stimulating conflict happens. These are the some of the ways in which people, the organization uses the stimulating conflict techniques. One is the reorganization. Reorganization is they are changing the organizational structures and the positions and all. So everyone is given different kind of role. Say production manager is in the now in some different department, and one particular worker is in different department. So it will result into some kind of like you are also given some kind, now the classes are just started, but you will be given in future semesters to work with certain selected students. So when you are working in a team, you might encounter their different personalities, but you will try to accommodate and come to a common term. So there will be conflicts, but ultimately you will learn to how to work with others as well. So reorganization will help in this way. One of the reason is that one of the way you can avoid the conflict is use of informal communication, bringing the informal communication to make the conflict more healthy in the way that it becomes competitive, encouraging competition, bringing competition, rather than creating conflict, rather than having negative conflict between two departments, right? That will lead to hampering the productivity. We should have a kind of a healthy conflict, which is known as the healthy competition. Like if the two departments, one is dealing into say product A, second is dealing into product B, if the management has certain policies that if the more profitability will be from say product A or product B, that department will get certain extra bonuses. So people will try to work more hard, and it will be productive for the organization rather than negative for the organization, right? Then bringing in outsiders means uh, recruiting the fresh people, fresh talents. So sometimes the fresh people will have their own opinions, their own new thinking, and it will lead to steering of the discussions and the problem solving things, and ultimately the organization might get benefit from the discussions and all, right? But you, as I have told you, that stimulating conflict strategies are very risky in the sense that you have to as a manager you should know where you have to stop that and solve it, right? Is it clear? Is it clear? Now, pre- preventing conflict strategies, right? अब conflict ना हो उसकी strategies क्या है? Reducing interdependence, right? If two departments are interdependent to each other, the chances of having conflict is higher, right? Like for example, that one department has to take certain raw materials, they have to take permission from second department and get the keys or something for the warehouse and get the raw material. So two departments are interdependent, so it might lead to conflicts. So you are reducing the interdependencies between the individuals and the departments. Automatically the lesser they interact, the lesser chances are there of their having conflicts. Rotation of personals may be हो सकता है due to the same persons in the organization the conflict is happening. When you are rotating them from one department to another, from one branch to another, the chances of conflict might be reduced, right? Then is the creation of liaison groups. Liaison groups is we have done with the liaison as a role, right? We have done the liaison role in the roles of the manager. So so what are the liaison groups? Are the groups formed for the purpose of building good relationship, healthy relationship within the organizations, which are helping the members in the organization, whether it is individuals or groups, to build healthy relationship. Creation of mutual trust and communication, making a environment very healthy, very transparent in the sense that everyone is getting all the information, so no one will feel that they are being misleaded or misguided or something. Then one point is left, that is establishing superordinate goals. Superordinate goals are goals that are worth competing but require two or more social groups to cooperatively achieve it. Like, let's take the example of it. Let's take the example of the. So these are the superordinate goals are the goals which are considered to be of the highest level, right? They are higher goals. Like for example, you can take that to be in good physical shape, to get enough sleep, avoid stress, eat healthy diet. These are all contribute to the superordinate goals. To be healthy means they are a kind of a the positive goals, the positive things which will lead to positivity. So if you are having creating establishing positive goals, the chances of the conflicts might reduce, right? Is it clear? Preventing conflict strategies are clear. So we are studying three strategies: simulation conflict strategies, preventing conflict strategies, and next is the resolving conflict strategies. Is the preventing conflict strategies clear? Is it clear or any doubt? Now, next is the resolving conflict strategies. Resolving conflict strategies, when they are applicable, when conflict has happened. अब जब conflict हो गया, now how will you solve it? Using the resolving conflict strategies. First is the compromise. You are one of the easy ways. If two parties are into the conflict, one might compromise, obey it. Okay, I am fine, I am obeying it. So conflict might get resolved, right? Like for example, management and workers are in conflict. Workers are saying hike our wages. One of the way with the management is they compromise. They say, okay, you want increase in wages, we will do it. Conflict is resolved. They will stop their that strikes and all, right? So this is known as the compromise strategy. Then exactly opposite to the compromise strategy is the dominance or confrontation strategy, where you try to confront the opposing group or opposing individual and try to confront it. There is heated you can say arguments going on until and unless you win that situation. So this is more of kind of showing the dominance. Like workers are not obeying, so management is getting more and more strict and trying to confront that why we can't increase the wages, or convincing them that this is not the right way of doing the strike and all. So this is exactly the opposite of the compromise strategy. Then is the problem solving. Problem solving is a kind of a midway, where you are what you are doing is that management, as a managers, you are trying to solve the problem by having the facts check, that this is the fact and we can solve it in this manner. So this is a kind of a win-win situation. You are trying to come to a situation where both the parties will get certain kind of benefits, right? then then is the smoothing strategy. The smoothing strategies are kind of like you can take the definition of the smoothing strategies as it is also known as accommodating. Smoothing is accommodating the concerns of other first rather than prioritizing one's own concern. Examples includes the when it is important to provide a temporary relief from conflict or buy time until you are in better position to respond or rush back. Like for example, workers are saying that we will strike unless and until you will increase the wages or something. So you are smoothing them, you are trying to calm down the situation. You are saying just give us say 10 days, come back to the jobs, just give us 10 days and we will try to work on it, we will try to increase your pace as soon as possible. So this is a kind of a it is somewhat similar to the compromise, but here you are trying to come to a way where the situations get calmed down, right? Is it clear? Now, functions of conflict, like this is something you might say that whether the conflict might be fruitful or not. Yes, in some way or the another, like we have discussed, that sometimes conflict might lead to the positive things as well, like release of tension, right? Creative thinking, like if a group of people are deciding about something new strategy in the organization, unless and until there is no conflict between them, means conflict of opinions, so they will not do any discussions. Like I am putting certain new strategy to the management and everyone is obeying it, okay, this is fine. So there is no chances of creativity, but everyone is putting their options and fighting for their idea. What will happen is the resultant decision will be more fruitful, more creative, right? Creation of challenge, sometimes the challenge will leads to healthy competition, and like I was saying, the two departments might compete with each other for the higher productivity, and it will ultimately result into better for the organization as well. Then simulation for change, it will help in change as well, that sometimes the conflict might lead to accepting of change as well, right? New things have to be adopted, but when people are discussing about the new strategies or new changes in the organization, they might come up with the more positivity towards the change as well. Group cohesiveness means strong bonding within the group. Sometimes the conflicts leads to uh, more better boundings. There is conflict between the within the group. So what will happen, like you have heard this phrase na, that sometimes fights leads to stronging of the relationships. So in the similar manner, they are saying that sometimes the conflicts will lead to better understanding of each of the each other, and it might lead to better group behavior, and ultimately it will lead to better group performance. Departments might get more strong, right? Awareness is all about the awareness of the others ideas and their viewpoints. Then identification of the weaknesses as well, they are both interrelated. And better decision making, as we have discussed, more you discuss, you will come up with the better decisions. But as I have told you before as well, that the conflict are very risky when you are using it in this sense. So positivity ke andar, if you want to push the conflict, it is very difficult, it is very risky in the sense that you have to see that that conflict does not becomes negative in this sense, right? If it becomes negative, it will lead to higher tension, low productivity, creation of distrust. People are not trusting each other, goal conflict, loss of dynamic staff. Means in the sense that each one of his, the you can say the creative staff is not available. Weakening of the organization, like in the case of the Nokia, which lead to the decline of the Nokia's smartphone business. Right? Is it clear?